I always thought buying 15 acres of wild ranch land, tucked away from the noise of suburban life, would keep me safe from any HOA drama. Turns out, I was dead wrong. The moment I thought I could breathe easy and let my cows roam, a woman named Karen, the new HOA president, decided otherwise. It all started innocently enough. I came home one day, parked my truck, and saw a bright, neon piece of paper flapping wildly on my front gate. At first, I thought it was just some flyer that had gotten blown in by the wind, but then I saw the word violation in bold letters. Unauthorized livestock expansion, the notice read. I stared at it for a solid minute. I mean, really? Unauthorized livestock expansion? It was a ranch. What did they expect? A garden full of tulips and pet goats. So, I took the paper off the gate, looked at it again, and started laughing. Karen had recently taken over the HOA board, and apparently, she'd brought her city slicker sensibilities with her. A few cows too close to the boundary line? She had a problem with it. The notice went on about a 300-foot minimum distance between livestock and any shared boundary lines, or I'd face Evict time proceedings. Now, here's the thing. My ranch had been there long before Karen's HOA ever came to be. The place was grandfathered into the community decades ago. The lines had been drawn before she even knew what a cow looked like. But apparently she didn't care about that. Armed with a clipboard, a ruler, and a golf cart she treated like a presidential limo, Karen started showing up daily to measure distances between my cows and her imaginary boundaries. She even wore a vest and a little fake sheriff's badge that said HOA Enforcement Officer. I couldn't make this up if I tried. It got worse, though. First, she hit me with fines due $250 a day for each non-compliant animal. Then came threatening letters, filled with legal jargon she probably copied off some sketchy website. The dust from my cattle kicking up? It violated neighborhood air quality standards. Dust on a ranch. I was losing it. She even had the nerve to report my barn, claiming it was an unpermitted structure, even though it had been standing there since the Carter administration. But the final straw? Karen scheduled an emergency HOA meeting. The only problem was she didn't notify me like a normal person. Nope, she posted a crumpled paper flyer at the general store 5 miles away. I missed it, obviously. And when the vote came in, Karen and her 5 cronies voted unanimously to initiate Evict proceedings. 30 days to vacate, or else they'd file with the county for enforcement. And if my cattle were found trespassing on community land, they'd tow them. Yeah, sure. Good luck fitting a bull into a tow truck. I wasn't just furious. I was insulted. This was my family's land, my livelihood, and my dream. No HOA was going to take that from me. But here's the kicker. I'd done my homework. When the ranch's property lines were redrawn to make room for the new housing development Karen now presided over, there were a few peculiar easements hidden in over 600 pages of county records, tiny legal quirks buried in the details. And guess what? I owned the dirt road leading into their development and the land they were using as their community parking lot. They hadn't been paying rent for it because, well, nobody had remembered it was private land. Nobody, except me. I had the deeds to prove it, notarized and filed, gathering dust like forgotten treasure maps. Karen didn't know it, but I had a little plan brewing. While she sent me passive-aggressive emails and issued veiled threats, I was plotting something better. Something she never saw coming. At sunrise one morning, armed with a cup of black coffee and my lawyer on speed dial, I made my move. First, I sent a crisp letter via certified mail. Notice of lease termination for the parking lot and access road, effective immediately. Second, I followed up with an invoice. If the HOA wanted to continue using the land, the lease would increase from a gentleman's agreement of due law $1 per year to a commercial rate of due law $7,500 per month retroactive for the past 2 years. Total due law $180,000, payable within 30 days. And just to twist the knife a little deeper, I had a construction crew come in that afternoon to fence off the parking lot. I posted signs, private property, no HOA parking. Violators will be towed. I wasn't bluffing. I had a tow company on retainer. As for the road, I didn't block it entirely. I'm not a monster. I just installed a cattle gate with a hefty lock. Sure, residents could technically walk into their development if they didn't mind the mile-long hike in cowboy boots. Karen's response: everything I'd hoped for. Outrage, sputtering, and desperation. She left me a series of angry voicemails, sent late-night emails begging me to be reasonable. She even tried to sweet-talk me at one point, suggesting we could find a compromise. But I'd been patient. I'd been more than reasonable. Now, it was her turn to sweat under the prairie sun. But Karen wasn't done. The next day, she launched her counterattack like a marching band at a funeral. First came the barrage of violation notices: non-conforming fence color, noise disturbances from my cows, complaints about the way I mowed my pasture. Ridiculous stuff. But here's the kicker. My ranch wasn't even technically in the HOA jurisdiction. I owned the land adjacent to it. Her rules had no authority over me. Every fine she sent was just fuel for my fire. My lawyer was having a field day drafting cease and desist letters, each one saltier than the last. Karen, however, didn't care. She wasn't aiming for legality. She was aiming for attrition. She was trying to wear me down with sheer annoyance. But Karen's masterpiece of pettiness? She organized an HOA beautification initiative. A bunch of volunteers came together to plant a row of ugly, fast-growing Leland cypress trees right along my property line, blocking my beautiful view of the hills and sunsets I'd enjoyed for decades. She even held a ribbon-cutting ceremony for it, grinning smugly for the local HOA newsletter photos. Here's the thing, though. Karen didn't bother with permits. Those trees weren't planted on HOA land. No, they were planted about 5 feet over the boundary onto my ranch. I waited exactly 2 weeks, just enough time for the roots to dig in. I called the sheriff. Surveyors came out, measured, and sure enough, the trees were trespassing. Karen got hit with a removal order and a $25,000 fine for illegal encroachment. Watching her try to explain it to the county inspector, all red-faced and shrieking about community good, was front-row entertainment. But Karen still wasn't done. When the parking lot blockade started causing chaos, no parking, no guest access, delivery trucks getting stuck, Karen tried a sneakier tactic. Under the cover of darkness, someone mysteriously cut the chain on my cattle gate and propped it open. I had security cameras, though, and I caught it all on glorious 4K detail. Armed with that footage, I filed a police report for trespassing and property damage. Karen got a lovely visit from the sheriff's department and a stern talking to about criminal mischief. Now Karen's grip on the HOA was slipping. Residents were getting fed up. They started referring to her land as Karen's land and calling it a nuisance. Real estate agents were whispering that property values were dropping. Who wanted to live in a neighborhood where you had to park 2 streets away and hike home? And me? I remained calm, polite, and utterly unflappable. Every time Karen lashed out, she just tangled herself further in her own web of incompetence. Meanwhile, I had bigger plans brewing. The unpaid parking lot lease invoices meant I was about to escalate things even further. Karen, sensing the walls closing in, tried one final move. She called for a community-wide meeting to propose an emergency assessment on every homeowner's dues to buy the land back from me. But the backlash was immediate. Residents were furious. They weren't about to bail her out. By the end of that meeting, 78 fan tram of the community had signed a petition to remove Karen from the board. The HOA was on the verge of collapse, and Karen was out. But the best part? Karen didn't just lose her job, her home, and her reputation. She lost control. And that, my friends, was the sweetest part of it all. It didn't end there, though. The new board was scrambling to fix things, but Karen's empire had crumbled. And as for me, I bought the old HOA clubhouse. Yes, you heard that right. I turned it into a community hall, complete with a shiny wooden sign proudly proclaiming Karen K. Community Hall. The ultimate irony. Life on the ranch got better than ever. But as for Karen, well, She ended up as a tenant in the very RV park I built on her land. She spent her days dodging the rules she once used to enforce, paying rent for a spot she never thought she'd occupy. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. Sometimes, it's about levying better. And sometimes, it's about owning the building that bears your enemy's name, turning it into a landmark, and watching as the very people who once supported her now gather there, enjoying the freedom they fought for. Now, I want to hear from you. Do you think I went too far? Would you have handled Karen differently? Let me know in the comments. What would you have done if you were in my boots?